Rogue Record.
What's up, everybody? You're listening to Hustle Makes It Happen, a podcast about the grit, the determination, and the mindset that it takes to become a winner. Success is not an accident. It lives outside your comfort zone, in the trenches, where excuses are met by brick walls. So strap in, tighten up, and let's get ready to hustle. What's up, everybody, and welcome back to another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. I'm Justin, I have Garrison, I have Chase here. Today, we're joined by Miss Rachel Cannon. She is the CEO of Rachel Cannon Limited. Rachel, how are you?
I'm great. I feel like that intro sounded like we were getting ready to go to war.
Hey.
That's the goal.
Yeah, we try to get hyped with the intro. That's what we do. Look, before we get off into your story, we always have to tell our guest, if you're going to help us grow, what is it?
Share the show.
If you're going to help us grow, you have to share the show. Look, guys, we love providing you with this content. We love getting these hustlers out in front of you so you can hear their story and so that you can learn from them. But we need your help. We have to have you share the show, leave us a review on your favorite podcast channel, watch the video on YouTube, make sure you're subscribed, all that jazz. It's the only way we're going to be able to continue to do this, guys. Definitely appreciate all the support we've had so far. It's been awesome.
Yes, please continue the feedback. We've been loving diving through messages and text messages of everybody telling us who they want to hear, the great things that they've learned from those certain guests that we've had. Keep it coming, please.
Yeah, and look, we read every one of them. I'm not joking. Every message on Facebook, every text message, every Instagram message, we read all of them. Every comment on YouTube, we see what you guys are saying, and we appreciate the feedback. So please keep it coming. Look, with that out of the way, it's my least favorite part of the show. Rachel, welcome. Thank you for joining us.
Thank you for having me. I'm happy I'm here.
Yeah, look, so you are the CEO of Rachel Cannon Limited, right? Why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and tell us a little bit about your business?
Okay. Well, first of all, I'm an introvert, and this is my least favorite question on the planet because I actually don't like to talk about myself, but here we go. So I'm an interior designer. I've had my business for 13 years. I've been in the design industry for over 20 years. Our design firm is the only firm, I think, in the world, I haven't heard of any others, but correct me if I'm wrong if somebody knows, that we focus on interior design for introverts. So we're sort of the anti-open floor plan crew. And when I started to really lean into who I thought my ideal clients were is when my business completely changed. And it's not that we only work with introverts, but I knew always that our clients were professionals with very demanding schedules. And just learning to speak their language, it changed my business completely. And before we were recording, I know y'all were talking about, I had told you that I, at one point, thought I might become a respiratory therapist just because I was kind of burnt out. And I'm so glad I didn't, because that was around the same time. If you try to speak to everybody, you speak to nobody. And I just felt like the clients that we were getting were not the ideal people. So,
where did you feel that you were started to target introverts?
Well, I was working with a business coach. I believe in business coaching. I feel like it's probably one of the best things you can do if you start a business or even thinking about starting a business. And her thing was always you need to find your only. So that people, if somebody says your name, then people go, oh, that's that girl that does whatever. And so if you can't distinguish yourself in any really highly recognizable way from people who appear to do the same thing as you, people are just going to lump you into the same category. And then they're basically just going to make their decision based on price and not the value of the service. And so she really just leaned in hard on us about you've got to figure out what it is that makes you unique. So I literally took out a piece of paper and wrote down, I was like, blonde, interior designer, divorced, introvert. And I was like, oh my God, it's introvert. That's it. That's the missing link. And my business had been fine up until then, but I was just exhausted with it. And I actually was very tired of people sort of, well, this person charges this way. And you're like, well, then work with them, because this is how I charge. And I felt like it was a service that was worth it. But I wasn't doing anything to communicate to them why pick me.
So one of the things that I really love about the way that we format this show is that we send out the questionnaire, we get you to fill it out, and then we're able to go through and kind of read and start painting a little bit of a picture about who you are, and we can kind of start digging into the things that have made you successful. And I think what you just said was one of the highlights that I wanted to start touching on kind of right away. Mm-hmm. You have been able to focus your business around you and make your business fit into your personality and into your lifestyle. Mm-hmm. And I think that's a probably something that's led you to some degree of success. Do you agree with that?
I do, but I actually used to coach other interior designers, and I do still sort of on some level, but I used to tell them all the time, like, the secret that no business coach actually wants to just tell you is that your ideal client is you at some stage of your life, either when you were younger or now or sometime in the future. And if you can just highlight what's important to you and like really identify your core values and what you stand for and what's valuable to you, your people will find you. And so that's like a huge stepping stone to success.
It's really funny that you mentioned that, and Chase is going to agree with me here. Whenever, we run our business outside of the podcast. We have our own land development company. And we talked about a long time ago, really, when we started the company, like we started trying to identify who our target market was. And we realized that it is us, yep. Right? We sell land and we develop land for people like us. We've never done any business coaching. Maybe it's something we should look into.
Absolutely,
but,
yeah.
It's really funny to hear you say that because I never considered it.
Mm-hmm.
It's very true to know that you have to find your mold, and people will be drawn mm-hmm. to what you're putting out when you are doing your best job at what you want to be doing too. That it's very true. I mean, I'm a personal client of Miss Cannon as well, so obviously she hooked me too. So
that's right.
But what's interesting about that is that I don't think that you're an introvert at all. But to me, that is just one of those things that, yes, that's sort of a piece of the equation.
Right.
However, it helped me really identify, like, okay, they may not be introverts, but they align on all these other points. Like, they just inherently respect professional services, and they're not coming into, what kind of a deal can you make me? Like, this is not a used car lot. So,
right.
So years ago, when I was young and cheap, I would say that I would try to find that avenue of, mm-hmm. and now I'm not saying I don't look for the same quality at a better price sometime for certain things, but
for commodities, sure.
Right. And it's very true. But then I was always like, yeah, I can get this done cheaper. But then after a couple times of getting burned and realizing,
pay for it somewhere.
Yeah, you're going to pay for it somewhere.
Yeah, for sure.
How hard is it as an introvert to own a business? And the reason I ask that is because I know, like, especially a business where you're dealing with, like, you're public facing, right? Mm-hmm. You have clients and you're mm-hmm. dealing with people face to face every day. How stressful and challenging is
that? And you're
on
a podcast with...
Right. So actually, I love this. Like, I really love getting to just talk to people one-on-one. So in terms of the meeting people, meeting clients, it's really just more of do you feel a connection with this person? Do you think that you would be a good fit? Because if you're not, I mean, honestly, when we met Chase and Macy, we laughed and we were like, oh my God, we love them. Like, it just clicked. You're not going to get that with every single client. But if there's just nothing there. I mean, why waste your time with it? It's your life. It's your life and your business and your energy that you got to expend. The energy part of the equation, I think, is the toughest part as an introvert. We have limited resources on energy, whereas extroverts could just go, and they get more energized the more they do, and I'll get worn out so fast. So probably one of the biggest challenges for me was in the beginning, I tried to run my business the way that all of my business coaches I had lots, were telling me to do it, and they were all extroverts. And at the time, I hadn't really pinpointed that this was the issue.
Right.
So they were telling me to do stuff like, you need to go to 10 networking events a week, and you need to hand out 50 business cards. And I was like, it will never happen. Like, I want to go home and go to bed. Like, that's what I want to do at the end of the day. Like, I'm not doing it. So I probably could have been more successful faster had I been more extroverted, but I wouldn't have had the energy. I couldn't have sustained it.
Yeah, what cost, right? What would that have cost you? So it's really interesting, kind of, as I was synthesizing your questionnaire, you start talking about setting boundaries and mm-hmm. things like that with your clients. And I think as an introvert, to kind of hoard some of that energy, not hoard it, but you know what I mean, to keep some of that energy to yourself so you can keep going, you have to develop systems and put things in place that stop you from expelling energy on things that aren't bringing you any return.
Oh, well, in the beginning, I didn't really have, let me back up. I worked for someone who had no systems in place. And my nervous system was triggered the entire time I was at that firm, because I just was like, this is a blank show. I would say it, but my mom's probably going to listen to this podcast. Waking up and just feeling like it can't possibly be this hard. Like, we're the expert, and why does it feel like the client is leading us around by the nose. Like, they're actually doing all the work, and we're just going, yeah, that looks fine, because we're so exhausted. So I knew that there was a better way to have a business, but in the beginning, I sort of still replicated some of that stuff. But what I am not is willing to continue to make the same mistakes and just throw my hands up and be like, there's nothing you can do. People just suck. I don't think people suck. I think you teach people how to treat you, and if you're not willing to say to clients, hey, I don't text with clients, I'm sorry, and then you get pissy every time somebody texts you, well, that's really on you. That's really not on the client. You've allowed it. They're just doing what you trained them to expect,
I love, because we have never touched on systems in place.
Nope.
Right? And I think a lot of people fall short of this, is not having those barriers and systems in place. Even when you're not in that corporate structure. You're in this personal business space. But I am one of our clients. I mean, we email quite often still, but I don't just pick up the phone and go, hey, I was at the store and I saw this like on a Friday night because I was in I don't have that availability. And that's okay.
Yeah.
It's okay, because that's the way that it is. That's the systems in the corporate structure that she's put in place for herself.
And that structure, like you were saying, that really was about protecting my own boundaries and my own energy resources. Like, I just couldn't continue to allow people to walk all over me. It was like soul crushing.
It's kind of like how we text our producer at midnight and we just talk to him all night. And he's like, I'm trying to sleep, guys. And we're like, yeah, but we're on nights, bro. And you're going to stay up with us.
Yeah, I was about to say that. Like, I think society at large is very guilty of that. I know I'm guilty of it. I know he's guilty of it, because we do it to Jim all the time.
Yeah.
Yeah, but he likes it sometimes.
Yeah, he does. but I think the problem is, like, as a society as a whole, like, we're so used to this instant gratification and this instant means of communication that it's
you can't wait for the email to come back next day.
Yeah, so
people just lost patience.
I put a lot of respect on the fact that you do that, right? Because not many people do that, and so to be able to put those boundaries in place and still run a very successful business is pretty impressive.
Well, thank you.
I think it's a difference between running your business like a side gig and running it like a business.
Absolutely. I used to tell some of the other designers that I coached there is a difference between being self-employed and being a business owner. And there does come a time in your business where you have got to start to shift your mindset to business owner. When you're self-employed, you're doing all of the things. You're the one answering the phones and going and picking up the paychecks. And I mean, you're doing it all. But eventually you will reach a point where you can't do it all. And that's when you start to say things like, people suck, and oh my God, clients, I hate this town. Clients are so awful here. And no, they're not. I mean, you haven't done a good job. You're doing too much stuff. And most of the time, the reason they get to that point is because they're not willing to charge what the service is actually worth, and they're playing the price game, which is a road to nowhere. And they're all complaining about, I don't make enough money to hire anybody. And you're like, well, have you thought about raising your rates? No, God, nobody would hire me. Do you know everybody? Like, there's all these like limiting beliefs that just roll around in your. I thought when I finally made the call, like, I have got to stop allowing clients to text me. Like, I can't do it. And I remember like my hands were shaking when I hit send on that email. And I was like, oh God, they're gonna be so mad. And they were like, oh, we get it. It's fine. I was like, I lost sleep over that. Like, I was going to upset all these people. And they're like, no, it's fine. We get it. There are no design emergencies. Like, that's what I just have to, like, remind myself.
There's not.
There's not.
Yeah. That really does. It rings true. And I think that's something that I think in our business that we can learn from automatically.
Yeah, without a doubt.
Because there's no development emergencies while you're developing something that's not done yet.
That's right.
Unless a line breaks, but it won't be them that call you. It's going to be the parish. So, yeah, so let's rewind. So, LSU grad. Yep. So what happens after that? Give me a little background of how the storyline went up until now.
So I took the long route out of LSU. I started in graphic design and realized 3 years in, these were not my people. I could not listen to another Tori Amos song in an art studio where there was a nude model in front of me and all their women were depressed and didn't shave their armpits. I was like, these are not my people. And so I had taken an elective that was the history of interior design. It was part of that curriculum, and I just thought it was cool. Like, I love history, and it was interesting to me to, instead of learning about history through the lens of treaties and wars and whatever, you actually learned about those things through the lens of, and here's what people were painting at the time, and here's what they wore at the time, and this is what their house looks like at the time. That was just cool to me. So when I finally made the call that I was going to switch, I told my parents, and I was in my 3rd year of college, and it was going to be another 4 years because it's a selective admissions process. So I was basically starting over. And I remember they were just like, it's not a race. I was like, oh, thank God, because I was not mature enough to graduate when I was supposed to anyway. So it worked out better in the long run. And then post-graduation, so LSU is what is considered like an accredited design school. So everyone assumes that when you go to design school, you're looking at paint colors and fabrics, and but none of that's true. You're actually talking about life safety codes and health safety codes and building codes, and does this bathroom have the right amount of so that a wheelchair can turn around, and like it's mind numbing. Like it's not actually
ordinances and codes.
Yeah, it's not creative at all. And then the times that you do get to be a little bit creative, and it's funny that we were talking about the military area. I used to say all the time, being in design school was like being in the military, where they wanted to just sort of beat you down to where you didn't have your own opinions about anything, and then they wanted to tell you what your opinions were about everything. So like by the time you leave, you're like, all I can do is CAD drawings. Like I don't know what design is. I don't know. Like all I'm good for is to sit behind a computer and just draw wall details all day. And I knew I didn't want to do that. A lot of friends went off and like worked for huge architecture firms in Dallas and California, and had one friend that just lucked up. She happened to be in Las Vegas in the Wynn and said something about, this is what my degree is in, to her friend. And they were like, well, we're hiring designers. And she got this job at the Wynn. It was crazy. Anyway, I decided to stay closer to home, and I worked for a firm here for about 5 years. And that was the one that I just was like, it can't possibly be this hard. Like there was just I've said before, this person that I worked for was not a delegator. She was an abdicator. So it was just whatever the responsibilities were, she would just dump them in your lap and then disappear. And then the next thing you know, she's blowing in, going, the clients are coming tomorrow. Have you finished that presentation? And you're like, I haven't even started it. We haven't even talked about this project yet. Like what? So then you spend your day, what you had planned to finish that day gets put on the back burner, and then you're scrambling to just throw anything together. And then she wants to rip it apart, like design school. I think it's nice, but I just don't think they're going to think it's nice. And you're like, then why didn't you do it? Like, why didn't you give me clear instructions? Why didn't you say, no, I don't want solid fabrics. Please pick 3 paisley fabrics. Like, just no instruction. No, and then on top of that, just total disorganization. I mean, could you go pick my kid up from daycare today?
From your boss.
We forgot they were getting out early, and I did it. Went and picked him up, held him in my lap, at my desk. I'm like, this can't be right. Like the economy tanked. It was 2008, and she had to let a bunch of people go in one day. She kept me for a whole year after that because I had been her longest employee, and honestly, quite frankly, I was running the whole show. So she kept me for a year, and then in 2009, that was when it really, the bottom just fell out. Like it was awful. And my ex-husband and I were buying our first house, and we were set to close on a Friday. And on that Monday, she told me she had to let me go. And it was just, I remember calling my realtor, and she was like, don't tell the bank. And I was like, oh, what is even happening right now? Like, oh my God. So I'm somebody who really does, like, I thrive with structure and I thrive with routine. And obviously none of us actually know what's going to happen tomorrow, but we're comforted by knowing, like, we're going to buy this house and I'm going to have this job. And like none of that turned out to be true. I did get the house, but so I freelanced for, I almost did it in like 3-month spurts. I was like, well, in 3 months, the economy's going to pick back up and I'll have a job again. And like, no. And then like 3 years had gone by and I was like, I think I own a business and I don't know what I'm doing. Like I didn't get a business degree. Like you have to take one business elective in design school, and I took marketing, which was great. So another creative sort of side of business, but I didn't know, like, write a business plan.
So you weren't even conscious while you're going of that you were running a business while you were...
I was building the plane as I flew it. I had no idea what was happening. I had no idea. People would say things like, well, how full is your pipeline? And I'm like, what pipeline? Whoever calls me tomorrow is the pipeline. Like, what are you even talking about? Like, get out of here with pipeline. Like, I don't know what that means. And so that was what I was saying earlier. I just knew I was not... I'm smart enough to know that things can be better than that. And so once I realized, like, okay, I really want to try to make this work, I reached out for help. I got a business coach. One of the best things that I ever did, just charge what you're worth and don't apologize for it. Like that was sort of her mantra. And I just lived by it. And it's, I felt like I would always sort of impose my beliefs and values onto the client. Like if I thought, oh my God, that's so expensive. Don't do that, because you don't know what their financial story is, and don't get sucked into their financial story. The price is the price.
Right.
And it just, I don't know, it took a while to kind of get it right and to kind of figure out like what our market could handle. But after this many years, I mean, we were talking about this before we started recording today. I never had the security of the corporate world of, you know, here's your pension, here's your 401k. Like, I only actually recently started any of that, and I'm 43. And like, that is today, that is the thing that just drives me every single day. I'm like, I can't work till I'm 80. I can't do it. So I don't know, just, I can't imagine going from that type of environment to just the free fall. So it's almost better for me that I never did, because I can tell you right now, I probably would never have started a business, never in the first place.
I wish I would have learned earlier, much earlier, but you know, everybody's path is different. You know, Justin and I crossed at a weird time in our corporate careers, which we're still on, juggling this as well and land development. But I love the freedom of getting up on the days that I'm not held to that corporate structure. I love getting up and knowing that my day is solely responsible for me and what I'm going to do in it, and how much I accomplish is solely on my task. And I love that. I love that feeling. I love at the end of the day when I feel accomplished. Not everything might have got checked off, but I know that all the things that did get checked off were by my doing solely. And it's given me a different view on owning a business and running things and juggling all the other things that come in life, family, friends, business obligations. And so I definitely feel that.
This is my favorite part of this conversation so far, and I was kind of thinking about it while you were talking, but it's so funny that you never like made a deliberate plan to start a business. Like, your business started primarily from a downturn in the economy, right? You talked about that, but secondarily, you were like, what I'm doing right now sucks. There's a better way. And then you kind of like found your way into the business world, which is pretty unconventional. I think, hell, I don't know. I would imagine that 95 or better percent of people that start a business do it intentionally, right?
You know, I don't know. I feel like maybe in my field there are a lot of people that sort of they think it's going to be fun and fabulous, and my friends say I have great taste, and so I'm just going to do this on the side. And then you start to realize, but when you deal with people and people's expectations, it's not fun anymore. Like, if you're actually going to do it as a job, you have to get some stuff together. Maybe in other types of businesses, you know, land development. I mean, that's kind of a big. I don't think you can fall into land development. I think you got to have a real plan in place to do that kind of stuff. But I don't know. I have said before that in my mind, the threshold to entry into the world of design is very low. So y'all could all three wake up tomorrow and say, "Hey, I think I'm a designer. I'm just going to start doing that."
I wouldn't.
I could not.
Not me.
I cannot. He might be able to. I cannot.
Yeah. And that doesn't mean that you would be successable, but I
mean, you're also, you say me, I'm the one that hired this lady here, so that's definitely not true. No, but I think you're right. The barrier to entry might be lower on that side, and for us on the land development, I read codes for almost 2 years, ordinances for highlighting and sticky tabbing and doing all the things of getting things right in my mind. And guess what? I was still very unprepared at that point.
Yeah,
and it's a learning process. We learn every day. Every project, there's something new that comes up that we didn't see before, and there's a new business entity that we have to deal with that we never dealt with before.
Or government.
Yeah, or governmental entity. So that happens all the time, and I take those hits on the head as they come.
Well, and I feel like if you're smart, you take the hit, but then you also adjust for next time.
Absolutely.
Absolutely.
I know our second development, I thought our business was done. I was overseas, but he was at home dealing with some stuff, and we had some things go down. And I was like, well, that was a fun 6 months while it lasted, right? I was like, we're going bankrupt.
Oh God.
But from that event, like, we learned immediately, like, there is a pretty clear roadmap that we need to follow, and if we don't, it's going to end up costing us a ton of money.
Yeah.
We came out okay.
Yeah, we came out
That's
fine.
the scary thing. I feel like when it does become real, it is when the money is at stake. And like, look, if you're a housewife who has a very wealthy husband and it's play for you, great, more power to you. But like, you're kind of bringing us all down. Like, we want to let's raise the level of this profession. It's shocking to me the number of designers that work without a contract in place. Since you have signed our contract, it has gotten even more specific, and we've added more clauses. Like, you need to lock up your exotic pets. We don't want to be met face to face with a python if we're coming to your house. Like, just
it's reasonable.
and it's because I feel like I would much rather have that that awkward conversation in the beginning.
Do you have snakes?
Well, yeah. Like, do you have any, funky, like, I'm terrified of reptiles just in general. And so if I were to walk into somebody's house and they're like, oh, look at our iguana, I'd be like, no, I don't want to look at it. But this actually came out of one of my clients he's been a client of mine forever, and he loves dogs. I also love dogs. But they just got a bull mastiff puppy who was the size of this table already.
Big dog.
And when we got to the front door, he was like, I'm going to bring him out to greet y'all. Y'all can't just walk in. And I was like, oh, okay. And he was aggressive. I mean, he didn't bite anybody, but it was scary. And then one person on our team showed up a little bit late, and she just came in the front door. And he, like, his posture changed, and he was kind of in, like, that pointed, bowed up posture. And he goes, oh, he's fine. Just stick your hand out. Let him smell it. And I went, don't stick your hand out. Oh, my God, he's going to bite it. But I'm like, okay, this has got to go in the contract. Like, you gotta kennel up your dogs if we're coming over. If we ask you to, we can't be, like, if you've got a giant dog like that, like, oh, Lord, the liability. Like, that's my whole thing now, is I just want to negate as much liability as possible. So I'm going to have those conversations with you in the beginning when you kind of don't really know me, and then you're going to actually realize that you really like me and are actually pretty smart, and it's going to be a good experience.
I want to kind of back up to when you were freelancing. I'm sure that was difficult. I mean, you're dealing with the downturn in the economy. What kept you going through those 3-month spurts? Like,
well, this is where this conversation is going to get real. I was in a horrible marriage. Horrible. We had dated for 8 years, and I think we got married in 2007. So we had only been married a couple of years. And that economy spiraling, he was just a really unreliable person. Had lots of demons that he was dealing with, and just an all around not great guy. And I just knew on some level, like, the way out of this is to build your own life raft. And so you got to do something. Like, you certainly can't, just because the economy is tanked, you can't stay home. Like, just because the design industry has kind of gone into the toilet, there is no chance that you're just going to sit at home, because he's going to have full financial control, which then would have turned into full financial abuse. And I mean, I couldn't do it. So I don't know. I mean, there were days that I would literally, I didn't have anything to do. I would just so that I didn't have to be in the house with him, because their family was very wealthy and he had mailbox money. So he never even had to get up to go to work. Sometimes I would leave in the morning and he would be in his underwear playing, what was that Halo, playing Halo. And he would be in the same spot playing Halo when I would get home from work. And I'd just be like, God, you're such a loser. And just so that I didn't have to be in that house, because he was toxic, I would literally get up and get dressed and just drive around Baton Rouge for like a full work day, just going into stores and truly, I don't know how I did it. I had a very dear friend of mine who told me she did own a design business, and she was like, well, why don't you come, she's like, just sit at this extra desk. I could use the company, use this as like your office. And little by little, I was writing a blog at the time, and that's when blogs were baby things and nobody knew anything about them. And so that kind of got me some clientele. But if I'm being totally honest, I mean, it was all God. I didn't know how to market myself. I was very, Facebook was new, and no one was using it to promote themselves. And the way I was raised, it's kind of gross to toot your own horn. Like, that's so, God, you're so full of yourself. And so I would just think, like, I mean, just then unfollow me. Like, I need out of this. So I don't know. Grit, I guess, that's the short answer to that very long answer I just gave you. Yeah.
It's a different source of motivation.
Absolutely.
Than any other that we've really heard on the show so far.
Yeah.
But,
so you had to be in your business tanks because of the economy. Mm-hmm. So you got let go. You're in a very toxic marriage, and you're trying to figure out where to take this thing because you're trying to build that raft. Mm-hmm. What got you out on the other side? Where did your headspace go to walk out? And I mean walk out not figuratively from the marriage, but everything, because you walked out of the marriage, right?
Absolutely, yeah.
And then into this life raft. Where's it going? How did you get there?
So from the time that I knew I needed to leave, which was sometime in the first year, I stayed for 9 years. So it was not a quick, and a lot of that had to do with the fact that the economy kind of just wouldn't, pick back up. And the first thing that goes is luxuries. I mean, nobody needs an interior designer. It is a luxury 100%. I mean, my dentist even told me, like, people quit coming to the dentist when the economy tanks. Like, it's like that you would be shocked at what people just cut out. So, I mean, I could tell you what the final straw was. It's not a fun story, but he was very abusive, and he he would nitpick little things to just kind of rake me over the coals. He was a narcissist, textbook, narcissistic personality disorder. And that night, it was Easter Sunday, and I hadn't seen him all day. I'd gone to church, gone to my mom and dad's house. We were sleeping in separate bedrooms at this point, and we had these cats. I still have the cats, and he would always kind of get on to me about the way that I fed the cats was not his way that the cats were supposed to be fed. And I'm like, whatever, like they eat it, and it doesn't matter, like they're fine. And I remember I thought he was not coming home that night, and so I was in my room, and I was going to put a glass in the sink in the kitchen. And when I walked in there, he was in there, and I just like the sight of him, and I was like, he's gonna pick a fight with me. And sure enough, starts in on how I fed the cats, and I just kind of was like, I'm not doing this with you. Like I was so worn down, and I was so exhausted, and I just couldn't do it. Like I realized it didn't matter the amount of energy that I expended trying to explain myself or defend myself. I was wrong in his mind, and there was you'll never convince a narcissist that you're actually okay and that they're wrong. And so I just turned around and kind of went back to my room. I didn't realize he was following me. And when I got in the bed, he sort of just like got right in my face. And he had done a lot of stuff up to this point that was awful. And, just screaming, noses touching in my face and spits flying everywhere. And his eyes are red and bulging out. And I don't even know what he was saying at this point. But I somehow worked a leg free, and I sort of just kicked him in the chest, and he went flying across the room. And I don't know why in the world there was even a full bottle of laundry detergent in that room that night. I don't know. But he landed next to it, and he picked it up, and he just hurled it at my face. And I just happened to duck out of the way. If it had hit my face, it would have just crushed my whole... I mean, he was a very fit, strong person. And I just was like, this is it. I'm out. Like, I refuse to do this with you. So I called the police. It was awful. I mean, this is such a trashy story, and like nobody knows this really except like my close friends. But I feel like, if it helps somebody realize that you don't have to stay in a situation like that, then it's important for people to know. I mean, I did suffer while I was there, and it was miserable, but I did get out. And to me, the way to get out was to just build my own thing. And I filed for divorce very shortly after that. And, it took me a long time to kind of extract myself from his orbit, because a narcissist they don't like to give up their source of supply. And so he would kind of circle back and tell me, but we can be great friends, and we can do this and we can do that. And I mean, there was no sense in it, but I was so scared of him that I allowed that for a few years. And I remember a friend of mine was helping me clean out closets, and I think I finally got rid of the last of his stuff like in 2020. Like we've been divorced since 2016. And she was trying to move some stuff around, and his clothes were hanging in this closet. And she was like, what are you going to do with these? And I was like, I don't know. She's like, I'll go put them at the street. And I was like, no. Because the minute you do, he's going to call, and he's going to want those clothes. And then I'm going to be the one that has to deal with him being mad. And like, we were divorced. I shouldn't have had to deal with that.
Sure.
He left all kinds of stuff at my house, and my attorney would be like, Rachel, all that stuff is yours now. He had 90 days to get it out. That Corvette that's sitting in the driveway is yours. Don't tell him it's yours. And I'm like, I'm telling him anything. Like if he wants to come get it, I didn't want to deal with him. It was not what I ever thought my life would be. And I used to think all the time, and I think I probably even told him multiple times, if I had been someone weaker, you would have broken me, and I would have become, a very sad, probably, statistic. But I don't know. I'm tenacious. I don't know. I mean, like I knew that I was better than that, and so
use that negative situation,
yes,
for the right outcome,
absolutely,
to better yourself and build a future for yourself.
Yeah,
and that's okay that part of your life came out on here, because we've gotten to listen to some hustlers and their stories of why they've got there, and there's some striking stories that honestly gives me chill bumps at times, just to know that people had to fight their way. We went through, we had an episode with a young lady, an author that's from the area, a very accomplished author, and to listen to some of her demons that she fought through bad marriage and mental anxiety and upbringing, and just listening to it, it's like, and for her to come out on the other end positive and still fighting for it. I love hearing those moments because it lets me know that some of my struggles that I've been through to come out on the best side, I'm like, I get to share that. It may not be the same story and the same script, but to know that you share those type of commonalities it's a great feeling sometimes to know that people out there, they do struggle and they need to come out on the other side, and they got that fighter in them, those warriors. And those are the people that sit in that seat.
And I will tell you that a huge part of feeling like I could fight it was that I did have a business that was growing. I had just compartmentalized everything. So in the business life, Rachel was completely in control. People did what she said, and it was a completely different dynamic than what I lived at home. And it was honestly like yes, I was kind of using that situation to sort of motivate myself, but I also knew, like, you will be successful. Like, there's no question, you're going to be, you're smart. Like, you can do this. You just got to figure out a way to get rid of this.
So this reminds me, and this is kind of, it's on the same topic, but I just watched a documentary on Netflix, and it was about the vegan superstar that had the most popular restaurant almost in the world. And she had some of the biggest stars, and this restaurant was multi-million dollars. It was pumping out all this stuff, but her life in this little box beside the view under the microscope, that everybody was like, oh, she's got the most perfect life, penthouse in New York. Well, she was with someone that was narcissistic and controlling, and her life was literally in this whirlwind behind closed doors, but nobody knew it.
Right.
So I think
that is something. Let me just back up for a second. That is one of the reasons why I kind of even hesitated to tell that story, because like my clients don't know that kind of stuff, and it's not. There is still like there's this stigma. Like I said, this is such a trashy story. There is this stigma that like abusive relationships only happen in like lower income or poverty stricken homes, and I'm like like we were both college educated people, both from very well-to-do families. Like there is no, this kind of abuse doesn't know a social status. Like it doesn't know that kind of stuff.
Absolutely.
And it's, hard for me to talk about, because I do feel like, I've built this business and there's this image of like, oh, Rachel. And I'm like, I mean, if y'all met me, you would know I'm like the most self-deprecating person in the world. Like but I don't know. I just feel like I'm just tired of, I don't really want to live up to somebody else's image. Like this is who I am. And I lived through hell and I made it out. And I don't know, like I am proud of it. I really wish that I would have had the resources to get out earlier than I did, or possibly not even marry him at all. But yeah, that's kind of, I pushed through that because I just feel like if this is a show about the hustle, I mean,
that was part of your hustle.
It was, yeah, absolutely.
Look, and not only is it like a story about hustle, but it is like the story that we want to tell on the show, right? So everybody, Chase kind of touched on it, everybody sees success. They see the overall picture of success. They see that the penthouse. They see the Instagram following. They see all these things. But what people don't understand is that every single successful person has a story, right? They have something that they've gone through. I think the amount of people that are successful that haven't gone through something like you've gone through, or something equally as challenging, like those people are probably pretty few and far between for the most part. So whenever we started the show, it was for that exact reason, was to get normal people that have gone through things, had to grind it out, had to grit their teeth and dig their heels in and work to become successful, because there's a lesson in that. There's a lesson in that for anybody that's trying to do anything in their life, that whatever they're facing or whatever they're going through, if they keep the right mindset and they keep their foot to the gas, they can always come out on the other side. Yeah, always.
You can.
I feel like people who are worried about kind of maintaining their facade might stay in a situation.
Absolutely, yeah.
A bad situation a lot longer than someone else who
100%.
Like a low income family who maybe it's like more normal for them to be in a bad situation. Yeah. And I mean, I can see that being the reality.
I think so too, that we could take out of this, and this is something that I've personally been through, is I was in a toxic relationship. I was part of the toxic, but it was because we were both toxic towards each other.
Yeah.
And what the traits that brought out of me today, I'm ashamed of.
Same. Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Very similar situation.
And knowing that person, like the person that sits here today, if I rewind 9 years and I look at that, I'm like,
you don't even recognize him.
I'm not that person.
Yeah, you'd have beat that dude. You'd have whooped that dude's ass.
but being in that toxic relationship, it brought those traits.
It charges you.
Yes.
Like it fires that part of you up. Because I have said those same words. Like, I don't even know who that girl was. Like, I just, perfect example. You know me now. Like, y'all have read my answers to your questionnaire. What does success look like to you? Peace. And truly, I'm like, just peace, a peaceful, happy life. You're talking to the girl who literally would have like murder fantasies about this man. Like, I researched, how can you kill someone and no one will find out? Like, what? The only reason he's not dead is because I knew I would go to jail. Like, that is how much I hated this person. And like, I say that now, I'm like, yeah, that's funny, but like, that was the reality of it.
That's
like,
where your mind
you were
was
at that level.
That's
which
not
is
me.
Yeah, but that's I mean, for your headspace to be
God.
there is.
It's kind of scary.
Yeah.
It is. It is.
Yeah, I mean, when you're in a situation like that, it just brings out bad traits. I mean, just being around toxic people in general doesn't even have to be a relationship. It can just be friends or
Absolutely.
just coworkers, and then it will bring a side of you out that you are not comfortable with.
What I was going to with it is, you know, while I'm in this toxic, and I'm part of the toxic too. Together, we were just oil and water, just bad. I wasn't focusing my energy anywhere where it really truly needed to be in those moments too, because I'm in this turmoil, and that's where a lot of my energy is focused, in that turmoil. And it's not on my business or my career or where I was going. It was more focused in this this roller coaster of negativity.
Interesting. Yeah.
And now, you know, I don't live that life.
Thank God.
Yeah. Nah,
It's helpful.
Yeah.
I mean, I really mean that.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah.
I want to talk about something that you mentioned whenever we asked you about attributes for success. And you said anxiety, and then you said you were joking. I want to go back. I put a star beside it, and I wrote me too.
Yeah.
And here's why. Because whenever we have things going on in our business, and like you with your situation, and then trying to, you know, dealing with the bad economy and all that, you get this sense of anxiety. How does that fuel you to go forward? So for me, it's like, the reason I wrote me too is because, like, whenever we have a lot of things going on, I get very, very anxious. And I think, like, I figured out a way to focus that anxiety into, like, very small, like, bite-sized chunks of success.
Yes.
Do you share that? Like, is that kind of how you focus it? Or do you, do you panic and then...
No, I mean, so oddly enough, there's still a little bit of the Rachel at work is very cool and collected, and like, it's because I put all those boundaries in place. Like that's just the deal going into it. So there's really not a whole lot of anxiety fueled decision making at work. Personal life is kind of different. Like, I still sort of I struggle with, like, I'm going to disappoint a friend because I really don't want to go to that thing, or like, and I just sort of like work it up in my head, and I catastrophize, and I can make myself sick if I really wanted to. With the anxiety at work, though, it's almost like an extension of perfectionism. Like, I'm so anxious that I will disappoint a client that, like, I probably over communicate, and I probably I'm maybe a little bit too militant with the way that we do things. But to me, it's just, I know that the way that I've done it this long is the way that's, like, tried and true, and I don't want to deviate from it, because I feel like every time I've tried, it just became a disaster, and then I have to, like, walk back and try to undo a mess. So the anxiety part of the equation, it's like, I know I'm being funny. I do have anxiety. But it is kind of one of those things that it's almost like my insulative, I don't know. It's the thing that fuels me. Like, I don't want to mess up, and I know that's unrealistic. Don't want to disappoint anybody. Don't want to mess up. Don't want to make a huge error. And that is all fueled by a very constant low grade anxiety, just in general.
I brought that up because I want you to help me work through it personally. Whenever you said you militarize everything, like, I'm in the military, right?
Yes.
So I do that on, like, an exponential scale. Yes. And I'm in a leadership role in the military. So I do this at home a lot too. If I get anxious at home, and my wife is going to listen to this, and she's going to be like, yeah, I told you. But I'll do it at home a lot, and I got to try to figure out how to get out of it. But whenever I get anxious, I get kind of pushy, and I start giving orders and things like that. And I don't think it's a good way to do business. Yeah. But I have this level of anxiety where it literally feels like somebody's, like, pushing me in the back to go get something done. You know what I mean? Does that? I don't know if that makes sense. Chase doesn't share that sentiment. He's usually pretty even keeled.
So let's talk about that. I'll be your therapist for
Thank you.
just a second. So actually, the fact that you can put a physical attribute to the way your anxiety feels is huge. That's sort of an exercise that I would do with my therapist, which she was like, what color is your anxiety? I'm like, black. where does it live? I'm like, in my throat. Like, it's just, when you can sort of identify it, like if you're having a day where you do feel it, if you're conscious enough to go, okay, I feel you. It's fine. We're going to take care of it. And yes, I do think if you can sort of break it up into smaller bite-sized chunks, like, okay, I can't do this big thing until I can do these 5 other little things. That is a much easier way to deal with anxiety. I only recently started to take a medication for it, and it's a very low prescription for anxiety. It's actually, she said it's an old-timey medicine for blood pressure. So it works on a lot of men. Maybe it'll work on you. And I was like, great. I didn't want something that was going to sort of mute me and like make me zone out. Because I told her, I said, I honestly feel like my anxiety is part of my drive.
That's how I feel.
And I don't want to lose my focus, and I don't want to lose the fire under my ass, quite frankly. Like, I don't want to lose that. And I am very concerned that if I'm just so doped up on something that cuts me off from all of my emotions, I'll just be like, who cares if anything gets done? Well, no, I can't run a business like that. So we did find the medication that works good for me, and I'm very happy with it. And I don't think everybody has to be on medication, but right. I'm here to say, if you need to be on it, do it. It's a game changer.
Yeah, I wanted to bring that up because I think it's an important part of your personality. I mean, I know it's an important part of mine, but like whenever you get anxious like that, it always gives you something to work towards if it's healthy. I mean, there's obviously a lot of people go into a tailspin. I don't feel like I typically go into a tailspin. Every once in a while I go into a tailspin, but I don't typically go into a tailspin, and I think that's kind of similar to what you do. So whenever we asked you about the attribute that leads to your success, you talked about anxiety, and then you said it's probably just focus. Like, that's exactly what you said in the question there. Yeah. And I think that's important. That's kind of where I wanted to go with that. Mm-hmm.
Yeah. I like how you looked at me when you said, I don't go in a tailspin too much.
Every once in a while I go, and Jen's laughing. Every once in a while. And I get kind of militant. And it's so funny when you said militant, because that's exactly what I do. I'm like, all right, this is what we're going to do. This is the plan we're going to execute. And then
so here's what keeps me from doing that. I also, because then there's the interpersonal relationship side of that where I'm like, but then they're going to hate me. The people who work for me are going to hate me, and I can't live with that. So I do sort of have a way of like I noticed today I was asking somebody to do something, and I'm like, you got to quit saying it this way. We should probably do blah, blah, blah. No, we should not do it. You should do it. So I like backed up the email, and I was like, once you're done with that, I need you to do blah, 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 blah. I'm like, it's okay to be the boss. Like, you do own this business. It's your name on the door. It's your livelihood. At the end of the day, the buck stops with you. So if you need, again, you're going to love this. This is another therapy phrase. Clear is kind, unclear is unkind. So you can't expect people to read your mind. You can't expect them to know that you want it done a certain way. And that was what kept me frustrated at that first job for all those years.
That's why a lot of people either love me or hate me.
That's probably why we got along.
I've learned that, and not through therapy, but through my own personal therapy. I used to not be clear, and that the water was very muddy.
Yeah.
And now I'm just very direct. Some people do not like it at all, and I'm just like, nope, you're not going to talk to me that way, or this is the way it's going to be. Especially if I'm, like you said, I'm in charge of that role. This is it. And if there's a better way to do it, I'm fine. Like, let's talk about that. But if I'm given direction, or
do you remember Karen Hughes? Do you know who that is? She was on George W. Bush's staff. I don't remember what her role was exactly, but she wrote an amazing book that I read sometime during his.
Plug it. What is it?
I don't remember the name of it, but it was phenomenal. Hopefully somebody can put it in your show notes. But her role kind of was sometimes to just manage people, and her thing was always when you have to either like deliver bad news, or you have to sort of correct someone, or pull somebody back into the lane you need them in. You should always lead with a positive. And so I've kind of adopted that, and I mean I really feel like we have a very positive workplace. I mean, like today the air went out and I was here and they called and I was like, go home, I'll pay you for the rest of the day. I don't care. I'm like, I'm not gonna make you sit in the office and sweat. Like, that's ridiculous. Right. Go home. It's fine. And hopefully that type of thing, hopefully it's building the kind of loyalty that I want. But at the end of the day, I understand everybody is free to come and go as they please. And I just don't want, grudges or anything against me. 10 minutes from normal. That's it.
So I want to talk about something, and it's not mentioned here, and it's just because, one, I'm a client, and then two, it's the space that you're in. Is there ever still today, or just leading up to, or over the years, your job is, I know you said that it's to deliver intellectual properties to your, do you ever get anxiety about delivering that product to a client? Because that is exactly what they're paying you to do, right?
Yeah, I mean, so it's interesting that everyone assumes they know what interior designers do. Their assumption is we are around shopping all day long, and I saw these lamps and thought they would be great, and I show up at your house with them. I will never do that. I'll never show up at your house with something. I mean, you will have seen it long before you agree to it, and there will have been probably multiple conversations about why this. I feel like once I made the shift from the actual deliverable is that completed concept, it's the ideas. What you choose to do with it is actually not my responsibility. Like, you paid me for the idea. You paid me to pull it all together and present it to you in this wonderful little neat package that's very nicely organized, that if you decide then to go on and implement, all the information is there. The final deliverable is, the room, if you decide you want to move forward and do that phase. But if you have paid me a design fee, you have paid me to design, not to design, order, track, receive, install, help you maintain. So the first deliverable of any project is the intellectual property. And then, of course, we love it when people are like, yeah, let's move to the next step. We love it. We want to order it all. And then the next deliverable is the finished room. I think that I took a lot of responsibilities on myself to guarantee people were going to be happy with the ideas. And I had to walk away from that, because happiness is a choice everybody makes for themselves. And I have no control over if somebody's going to be happy. That's just not. But I can guarantee you are going to get what you paid for. It is the deliverable is the design.
Right. I just thinking about the realm of people that hire a high end interior design firm as yourself. I can imagine those people are very particular. Mm-hmm. I know that I'm not as. I looked at you and said, I want you to be bold and.
Which is honestly, we're like, yes, oh my God.
But I also know that the people that I know that have hired, they're very, everything is just a certain way. I wanted graffiti in a bathroom. I'm weird.
Well, we like it weird.
Just for me, like looking in, like I don't really, my anxieties, mine's like a think space is my anxiety. I don't feel that pressure. Like the way I deal with it is just a little different than I've heard in times. I'm not gonna say it's better or worse. It's just different.
Yeah.
And that, like thinking about the pressure of your whole business concept being on like that other person's like acceptance or happiness too is like that kind of makes me think a little bit.
Well, I think again this goes back to you learn from your mistakes. And so when I worked for someone else that I felt like was one of the worst listeners on the planet, I sort of adopted the role of I will be the one that hears the client, and I will hear them out, and I will take that information back to her, and I will somehow make sure that that's what they get as part. At the end of the day, you have to live in it. I don't. I can think that it is the best thing since sliced bread, but if you don't love it and you're not thrilled and you're not doing backflips, then I don't know, maybe something went wrong along the way. And I've also had to, I should qualify that by saying I also shouldn't expect backflips from everyone. Like we had some clients say the other day, well, just so you know, we're not emotional, but this is awesome. And I was like, okay, if that's as good as it's going to get, I'll take it. Like I was like, thank you. Like that's enough. And the other thing I had to learn too was like, not everybody is going to say thank you. And so I don't know if y'all ever watched Mad Men. That was like a crash course on business for me. I would like hole up in my room and just binge it for days. And there was one episode where Don Draper says to Peggy, she says to him, she's crying, she's upset. She says, you never say thank you. And he goes, that's what the money is for. And I was like, okay. Noted. Okay. They have said thank you. They have expressed their thanks by writing that last check. You don't need a pat on the back. You don't need a thank you. But, managing expectations from the beginning is key. I tell you, we will do a full design concept that we will present to you. You will have an opportunity to ask for changes. And then anything beyond that, we're going to get into more fees because we can't work indefinitely on a flat fee. And I don't know, just that was a tough, more so than now having to like manage expectations. It was harder for me as a much younger business person to have that conversation. Like nobody wants to talk about the elephant in the room, right. But I just realized like if you can be brave enough to have the money conversation up front. I finally, at one point, I was so burnt out that I used to say, people would call, and let me just say this, I'm going to rake HGTV over the coals. It's the worst thing that ever happened to design because the budgets are not realistic. $3,000 to remodel a bathroom. Get out of here. You can't even demo a bathroom for $3,000. Like, that's ridiculous. I really feel like I skirted around the issue of money because I felt like I had to compete with that expectation. Like, well, this is what people think it costs, so I need to just sort of meet. And I finally was just like, I'm not going to do that. So the other thing was that people would always say, I would say, well, what is your renovation budget? Oh, we don't know. And I'm like, is it $5,000? Because that's the magic number. And I know that's not enough. Like, that's not enough for your kitchen. And I finally just started going because I knew that this kitchen's going to be a $60,000 kitchen. So I would double it and goes at like 120. Oh my God, no, like 30. I'm like, well, could you double it? Could you do 60? I mean, maybe. I'm like, okay, then we have a real budget. Like, I just would like scare the pants off of them right out of the gate. Like, and I don't know, like that was more psychological warfare, I think. But I don't know. So I got pissy whenever I was burnt out. Did you?
Yeah, I just learned your tactic for Thursday at our meeting.
Oh. Well, but I think you live in the real world too. I mean, you know what renovations cost. You're not.
I promise Thursday when I meet you, we're not going to tell you that we have a $10,000.
You haven't been at the silos in Waco. You know what's up.
That's my wife's favorite place, unfortunately.
No.
So look, we talked about your story. We talked about kind of what led you to get there. We've talked a good bit about the success that you've seen. Before we start wrapping up, I want to talk about failure. Right.
Okay.
So
Let's do it.
Why do people fail? Why do most people fail?
I really do believe that most people fail because they just don't believe that they're going to have to work for it. Especially if you are someone who has come from a corporate environment where your job is this one little job and the work is there for you when you show up every day. If you leave that environment and it becomes your responsibility to eat what you kill, no one's showing up at your door with business. Nobody is like, I mean, you have to hustle, quite frankly. I mean, that's really what it comes down to. And if you don't have a drive or if you don't have a situation that is motivating you to want to change your life, it's not going to come to you if you just sit back and like hope someone tells someone about your business. It's not going to happen. So laziness.
Such a small percentage of people that start that business that just rockets to the top.
I can't tell you how many, and as that was a very pointed question on purpose. I can't tell you how many people I've talked to over the last couple of years. I think what happens is people will see like some degree of success from people, and everybody has these ideas about what they want to do and how they want to, but people just don't execute. You know what I mean? And I think that's what keeps a lot of people from moving forward and pursuing a dream is exactly what you said. They have these ideas. They don't understand the amount of work that it takes to accomplish that goal, right? And I'll tell you what, a lot of times whenever you come from an environment, maybe you come from a corporate environment where you were able to leave work at work and kind of, do your little job in your little bubble and then leave. Whenever you start a business, that's gone, right? I mean, it takes a lot of work, especially if you have, if you have one, it's a lot of work. If you have multiple, it's a ton of work. People are just not willing to put that work in. You know what I mean?
And I feel like people are also not willing to accept that you're going to mess up a few times before you get it right. And like they take that first defeat as like I throw my hands up, I quit. And or it's not their fault. It's, somebody else's fault that it didn't get right. Like I think you're exactly right. I was in a weird way, because I know y'all just heard that horrible story. I was fortunate that I had that situation because it was truly the thing that I was like, I got to get the hell up out of here. Like, I can't stay here.
It was awakening for you.
No other option for you.
No.
It's a driver for sure.
Yeah.
Do you think like generationally it's becoming more of an issue that people are starting to get lazier and
I mean, you can make money selling pictures of your feet.
Yeah,
like, don't tell me there are no jobs. Truly, don't.
Yeah.
Don't tell me that oh my God, I can't pay off my college
We're not
debt.
plugging OnlyFans here.
No, we're not. But I'm just saying,
Hey, I will sell some feet pics.
I would too. My God, if it existed when I needed the money, I have 2 feet. I would have done it. You will never convince me that there's not a way. I'm sorry. Like, all these people, I can't afford a house because I have, college tuition debt and blah, 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 blah. Where there's a will, there's a way. If you really want it, you pull yourself up by your bootstraps.
Instant gratification. I think that's
Absolutely.
a huge issue nowadays, especially with phones, technology.
Well, and think about the dopamine rush every time somebody taps that heart on something that you post.
Yep.
I mean, somehow that is supposed to translate into dollars for people. And it does for a lot of them. But I don't know. Like, something about just good old fashioned, like, get up every day, get dressed, drive around Baton Rouge if you don't have anything to do, and just stay gone all day. Just make it like your schedule, you know?
Yeah,
hey, you can say it. The hustle makes it happen.
It does.
Every time.
does.
Every time.
Man, what an episode. It was as good as I thought it was going to be.
Better.
Learn
I love
some
it.
business lessons.
Thanks, y'all.
It was good. Rachel, we really, really appreciate you coming out and sharing your story with us. I know it takes a lot to kind of open up and be, put that out kind of on the waves, you know.
Yeah.
We don't have a huge listenership yet, right? But
We're about to get the RCL bump, so.
hey, we are about the RCL bump.
Plug yourself.
Yeah, tell us where we can find you, where we can find
Sure.
your website, your social media.
Thank you. So the website is rachelcannonlimited.com. You got to spell all of it out. Instagram is RCL Interiors. Facebook is also RCL Interiors. We're probably most active on Instagram. I did just start TikTok. I begrudgingly, I don't love it, but I'm running a business. I don't really have time to stop and make videos every 5 minutes of the day. But yeah, that's where we are.
So if you want one of the best
Oh,
interior designers in Baton Rouge, this is the lady you're going to call right here.
thank you.
That's it. Guys, that's another episode of Hustle Makes It Happen, the podcast. Remember, Jim told me not to do it. I'm doing it anyway. If you're going to help us grow, share the show. Guys,
Share the show.
we got to get it out on the waves. That's how we do it. He's doing the thing. He's saying it's icky. He's probably right.
Nobody's
But,
going to toot your horn for you.
That's
Let
right.
him do it.
Yeah, share the show. Give us the dopamine rush.
That's right.
Give us the little heart button, the little like, the thumbs up. Do all that stuff. Helps. It really does. That's it, guys. We appreciate your attention and your support. Rachel, we appreciate you coming out and joining us
Thanks
today.
for coming.
Yeah.
Guys, until next time, remember, keep your head down, keep your eye on the ball. Hustle makes it happen, but most importantly, have fun.